Everyone, I think we are live. I'm going to double check on the actual page because I know the one time that I don't check is the time that it won't show up. So let me double check here. And there we are, all four of us. This is so much fun having guests and not me just doing the introduction.
Thank God.
So,
I like how we're alternating boy girl.
That was all planned.
It's like junior high, right? Proper spacing.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are just joining us, we were just finished up our 2-hour Sous-Vide Infusions Showcase where we had demos from 8 amazing cooks, including the 3 joining me here. We have Lisa Keys from the Good Grief Cook. We have Mike Lashardi, CEO of the ISVA, and we have Chelsea Cole from A Duck's Oven and Director of Marketing for Vesta. We are going to be talking about infusions, and this is a Q&A panel. So if you listened to the Infusions Showcase and you have questions, if you have just general infusion questions or really just sous vide questions, let me know and I will pass them along to the guests. Drop them in the comments and say hi in the comments as well. Let us know who is out there. So to kick us off, I want to start with Lisa. Where do you come up with your unique flavor pairings?
Oh, good question. I come from weird places. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night with something in my head for an infusion, but I really love the book called The Flavor Bible. And, you know, I read that like I would read a novel. And so I learned about complementary flavors there. And then it's sort of just a matter of, you know, just trying different things. And I usually pair things that I normally just love to eat anyway. I'll see something in the grocery store that looks kind of interesting, maybe something I've never tried before. And, you know, I love going up and down the aisles and looking for new products. So, so basically, I think that way.
Have you checked out the Flavor Matrix by James Riccione yet?
Well, I listened to James, you know, talk about that. I have not seen the book yet, but you know, it's definitely a book that I need to get a hold of for sure.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
You said you like going up and down the aisles and looking for unique ingredients. What's something that jumped out to you that you weren't sure how it would work, but it actually turned into something that you turn to a lot?
Well, I love those hibiscus flowers, and I love lots of things that are dried, you know, like dried strawberries. A lot of these things are sort of new to my grocery store. Maybe people have known them for a long time, but I live in a little town in Pennsylvania that things maybe come to me later. But a lot of the dehydrated products have been interesting to me. I have some in my cupboard. I have some candied orange peel and some things like that. I'm more of a fruit and vegetable kind of girl versus meat products. So I tend to gravitate towards those kinds of things. And some of the fresh fruits that are sort of new and exotic, I sort of gravitate to things like that.
Chelsea, you said you also turn to the dried ingredients a lot. What are some of the less usual dried ingredients that you found can add some unique notes to some of your infusions?
Yeah, I'm trying to think less usual. Sumac, for one. I've been playing with more and more lately. Like I'm figuring out how to balance it and what to pair it with. But it's been something that's been like really surprising and really fun. And also, I mentioned this briefly before, but didn't really expand on it. Dried red bell pepper. I don't really think, I mean, red bell pepper obviously has a flavor, but it's not something I use to necessarily be a big flavor component. But the dried version does lend this like, I'm going to say earthiness, which is off-putting to a lot of people, but it's a really pleasant one. And I've been loving that more and more. And, you know, in general, when I cook, I do tend to use fresh onion and fresh garlic, but having dried minced garlic is really nice for things like this. And one product I've been turning to a lot lately and really, really love is granulated toasted onion powder. Mm-hmm. So it's not just onion powder, it's toasted onion powder. And it has a way bigger flavor and a little bit of that, caramely flavor that stuff gets when it is browned, when it does cook. And that is fantastic. I highly recommend adding it to your spice cabinet.
I feel like toasting spices always adds such great flavor to it that I've never thought of toasting onion or garlic powder. That's a real interesting concept.
Totally. Yeah, I know. And it's funny, every time I try to skip out on that step of toasting, I know I will always regret it. So I've just kind of forced myself, no, you're not going to skip it. You're just going to do it. It takes a few minutes. Just do it.
I've never cooked with sumac. What flavor? What? That's all I have.
It's like, I don't even know how to describe it. Maybe my other panelists can help me out a little here, but it's almost like a little bit of a smoky flavor. It's like something all on its own. And it's, when you do taste a dish with sumac in it, you can like pull it out immediately, but it's really hard to describe by itself. But it's funny. I accidentally, I bought sumac in one of my like grocery delivery orders from a local grocer. And then I accidentally ordered it online too. And then somehow ordered it from somewhere else. So I have like 3 bottles. I can send you one and you can try it for yourself.
It's so good. Yeah. I think it's like a smoky, earthy lemon kind of.
Yeah, citrusy, definitely.
Yeah.
It does have that
one of my
little
favorites.
citrusy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kevin Liddell says he agrees with citrusy. He was also wondering where in Pennsylvania, Lisa.
Kennett Square.
Kennett Square.
About
I know you just told me 3 days ago, but I forgot.
Southwest of Philly.
Nice. So, Mike, you make some really interesting flavor combinations, especially in your burgers. But since this is about infusions, you've come up with some real interesting things that I'm always curious where you get your ideas from.
The Flavor Matrix certainly that's a book that I use quite a bit, and it just has a ton of fun kind of going through the different matrices and even the infusion, or for the cocktail that I did, it was sort of looking up the blueberry and the lavender and seeing, okay, because as most of you know, I'm a Gatorade Diet Coke drinker, not too much of a cocktail aficionado. So I'm like, okay, what liquor can I get that's going to pair with this really well?
Me and Mike have crazy business lunches. I'll have like 3 old fashions and he'll go through like 4 or 5 Diet Cokes and things just get wild.
I always keep up and surpass you in some way. It's just
you do. You drink me under the table.
Exactly. And honestly, Facebook groups have been really good for me. I think that's where I learned about kaffir lime leaves, the dried lime leaves, and I've been playing with a lot of Thai stuff with that and dried galangal. I did like a salmon soup recently, and it was a Finnish salmon soup recipe, and I was like, what happens if I put these in there instead of the dill and just see what happens? So I'm always looking for inspiration, and people like Lisa and Chelsea and all of these fantastic folks that post on Instagram, I steal their ideas all the time.
I love learning about especially different cuisines and seeing like the kaffir lime leaves and just seeing the type of stuff that they use and then applying those to the type of cooking that I do on my own, that it's not in that style, but it's taking an ingredient or two and then applying it to something that's familiar. And then I can kind of judge how it changes it and then kind of build from there.
Definitely. I think that's one of the things we all miss the most about 2020 with where we're at, is being able to go travel and get all those ideas from experiencing other cultures and all of that. So can't wait till we can get back on the road and maybe a Sous-Vide pilgrimage or two, something like that, to go explore some of these flavors.
Yep. So Chelsea, I know you do a lot of recipe development and, working on your blog and working with Vesta. What is a flavor combination that you're like, this is going to make a great infusion, and you put it together and you're like, I wouldn't feed this to my worst enemy?
Okay. So I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this. Well, it depends on the way it's used, I guess. I am never thrilled when I do strawberries in a liquor. Like, I love them in a simple syrup. I feel like it takes really well to that. But when I do it in a liquor, I feel like it always seems like it waters down the liquor more than anything else. I think because strawberries are big and have a high water content. And I'm just like never like wowed by it. It's like I don't know, maybe it's just too subtle for me. And so for something like that, for a lot of times when I'm doing like a fresh fruit, I really like to do it in a simple syrup instead of directly in the liquor. But maybe I'm just doing it wrong. I don't know.
You'll have to try using some dehydrated strawberries and see how that works. Maybe
I actually really like
dried.
that idea. Yeah, my parents are moving to a new home right now and they're inheriting an orchard in the backyard, which is fantastic. And they're planning on making, I'm pushing for this, essentially a kitchen workshop that's separate from the house that can have like a dehydrator, do some cheese making, some home brewing, like a massive kitchen workshop. And I'm like, okay, I can dehydrate plums and apples and all the things in their orchard. And then I can try some infusions with these dehydrated fruits.
I'll be sure to send you my mailing address so you can shoot them all my way for testing. So, Mike, I know you well enough to know that you've had your hardest part of answering this question will be narrowing down which one of the failures that you've put together. But
Exactly.
I'd love to hear what's yours.
Like if we're talking about infusions, I don't know if I can even figure out if this was a failure or not. It's been just a really, it was the flavor matrix. It was when I first got the book and I'm like, I just want to try something weird. And I'm kind of looking through, and I decided to do a pistachio and pineapple infusion. Pistachio and I think that's what it was. And like I tried it with a bunch of different, I tried it with brandy and vodka and tequila, and all of them were left me on this, like, I don't know, I kind of like it. I don't. Then I added some simple syrup and turned it into a liqueur. And I was like, maybe that'll affect. And I was like, yeah, this is kind of good, but what the heck would I use it for? Like, I have no idea what cocktail I would make with this. But the first time I did that, I just threw pistachios in the bag and it came out and it had like an 1/8-inch layer of pistachio oil on top of the alcohol. And I'm like, I've infused almonds before. That didn't happen. Apparently with pistachios, that's the thing. And it was incredibly off-putting. To say the least.
I like a good alcohol, but I'm not sure about with a nice layer of oil on the top if I'd be too down for that.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. That's for sure.
Lisa, what's your favorite way to use infused oils?
Infused oils. Well, with a nice big chunk of Italian bread to dip in. I think they're really great in vinaigrettes. And I especially love and use a lot of lemon oil and orange oil in my baking. I've also used vanilla bean oil in my baking. And probably the lemon oil is just my favorite. I love citrus flavors, and I think it just elevates the flavor of whatever it is I'm baking. I just did a tomato spice cake using the lemon oil, and it was just incredible. And you get that back note of the lemon, and it just elevates the whole. It's like citrus in just about anything you cook. It just brightens up the dish. And so lots of great applications for baking.
Have you been making your own infused lemon oils, or are you purchasing those?
I've just tried lemon oil for the first time. A friend of mine is going to send me some limes from her tree in California. So I'm going to try lime oil. Is going to be next. When I get those fresh limes. It's great when you can get, really fresh fruit like that, I think.
Makes a big difference in cooking or anything.
Peel.
Sorry, what was that again?
I just used the peel.
Mm-hmm. I just made a fig blood orange simple syrup for today, and I just used the blood orange peel and some figs that were in the fridge that were needing to be used quickly. They turned out really well. I love just the peel gives it just a little bit of citrus and some great notes in it.
It's interesting because what you said about, the freshness of the fruit really mattering. The first time I did that blueberry lavender infusion, the blueberry really came through. 3 days later, I get, another batch, and I muddled them the same kind of way, and it just really didn't come through as strong. And so that's why I ended up, when I made the cocktail, actually putting some in the shaker. I'm like, see if we can get a little bit more out of there. But it just from one batch to the next of what you bring home, it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think people forget about sous vide a lot is that you can have precision in the cooking, but the ingredients change based on the time of year. And, we talk about this with meat, that if you get a, Wagyu strip steak, you just need to heat it through and it's going to be perfect. But if you have a select strip steak, then going 8 or 10 hours could make a big difference and make it a lot better quality of meat, even though it's the exact same cut.
Yep.
I'd be curious to see if you use wild blueberries. You can get them fresh frozen wild blueberries, if that would be a more intense flavor.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to try, or even the dried ones that have been a little more concentrated. I definitely want to play with that some more.
Well, it looked delicious, that panna cotta.
I quite enjoyed it. I've enjoyed probably more than I should have over the last few days.
I'm definitely inspired.
Well, thank you.
Kevin says that Lloyd Cupicia sent him an alcohol infusion with orange peels a few weeks ago. It's on his Kosher Dosher blog, and his infusions are great. And I love a good orange cello, or whatever you would generally refer to that as.
Which also, last year, actually, if anybody, that's reminded me, needs gift ideas, for all of my coworkers, I did homemade limoncello, but I did sous vide. And it was very easy on my part, thanks to the help of sous vide, and I was able to do it a little last minute, too. So if you need some easy homemade gifts, these are awesome. People seem to really like them.
I did that for my mother-in-law a few years ago, too. I made an infused oil and an infused vinegar that she could package up together and give to all of her friends, and they all loved it.
Perfect, yeah.
I had a meloncello last year made with cantaloupe that I had never had one before, and that's on my list of things to try because it was phenomenal.
Was the flavor very strong? I'm curious, just because cantaloupe has such a subtle flavor.
It was pretty pronounced. I don't know what they did. I don't know if they blended juice into it. It was at a John Besh restaurant in New Orleans, and I mean, it was fantastic. I have dreams about that, so I need to make that one happen.
I wonder if you could take like you normally use vodka, right? In the cellos, you could take the vodka and then add the sugar that you would, but just not add any simple syrup, and just kind of replace the water from the simple syrup with the water that's already in the cantaloupe and might be coming out.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, kind of that's what Eric Villegas does with his limoncello, using the juice in place of some of the water. So that's a good idea. I'll have to give that a try.
So Chelsea, I know you like a good drink. What is your favorite sous vide infused alcohol?
Okay, because we're starting to get to that time of year. I don't even know if I can say for sure if this is my favorite, but I'm gonna say it anyways. I love to do bourbon with cinnamon and orange peel. It's one of my favorites. I like to just drink bourbon straight, and so this is a really fun way to drink it straight because it's got that little something extra without having a ton of sugar. So that's probably one of my favorite things to do, and it's great like by a fire. It's really wonderful for this time of year.
I think that's the first sous vide infusion recipe I put on my blog 8 years ago or whatever, was orange cinnamon bourbon.
That's because it's so delicious. Well, and I don't know, I guess I'm speaking maybe for the rest of the country. Here in Portland, it's gray and rainy and awful. So I'm starting to think about the things that make it a little less awful. So
we are cooling down, but it's definitely nice fall weather these last few days. So it's been nice seeing the dog go in and out as I'm inside on video doing this. Lisa, do you have a favorite infused alcohol?
I do not. I'm not a big alcohol drinker. And Arnold Palmer is my favorite drink. Maybe a glass of wine. So I don't. I used to, maybe when I was younger, but drink more alcohol. But I don't now. So
just your infused vodkas, so you can use them in the pie dough.
Just the pie dough, yeah. And I use a lot of spirits in my baking, but I just don't drink them.
Remind me again of the reason why the vodka was used in the pie dough. I know you explained it, but I wanted to remember what that was.
Well, with pie dough, you don't want any gluten formation in your crust because gluten is tough, and you want your pie dough to be tender and flaky. So vodka versus water, vodka doesn't create or enhance the gluten formation. I think it's because of it evaporates or something. I don't know the exact science behind it, but it's very different than the way water reacts with flour. And so that's the reason. And that came from years ago from Cook's Illustrated, Chris Kimball. He does a lot of testing. And I just recall reading that quite a few years ago anyway.
Well, it looked amazing, that's for sure.
It was good. It was good.
So, Mike, we all know about alcohols, vinegars, oils, your creams. Have you infused any other interesting liquid-y things?
Not that I can think of. I was actually really intrigued by Mark Webb's honey that he did today. That's something that I hadn't really thought of doing. So, not that it's alcohol, but the Prosecco I did was pretty interesting. It was a cherry almond Prosecco, and the first couple of times I made it, it was delicious, but you lose some of the bubbles when you're cooking it. And so I figured out, I could just recharge this in a whipping siphon with some CO2, and that took care of it. And that was one that was I guess it was weird for me because I don't drink a lot of sparkling wines, but it came out really good.
I love that combination of using sous-vide or other modernist techniques to create things that you can't create traditionally. Like using a traditional infusion, you can't take a Prosecco and infuse it and then recarbonate it very easily. And there's things like liqueurs or even red wines that you can make a great red wine, mulled wine type infusion that you wouldn't want to leave a red wine sitting on your counter for a month infusing generally because you have infused vinegar at the end, not an infused red wine. So it's one of the things that I really like about that.
Yeah.
This isn't, I don't know if we could, but this just made me think of it, but I don't know if we consider this an infusion per se. But one thing I've done before that I'm always impressed with the results of is using sous vide to make the most flavorful broths. And so whether that's, letting the bones sit in there for a really, really long time, and then of course herbs. But one thing I did recently when I made ramen is I did a miso broth and just really, really let it cook and concentrate the flavors. And man, was it fantastic. So I highly recommend doing that. I'm not sure if we can call it infusion or not, but along the same lines.
I'll take it. That sounds amazing. I need to get that recipe from you.
I have it. I have it written out and everything. I can share it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I love those flavored waters, whether they're like micro stocks or, dashis. I did for whatever reason, talking about where you come up with unusual flavor combinations. I was thinking of when you're a kid, at least when I was a kid, I would get the little like fruit salad cup that came in like the jar that you would open up, and there's like really old fruits basically in there. So I went to the grocery store and I got basically all the fruits that are in there, put it in water and sous vide'd it at like 130 and then strained it out and chilled it. And it was like a perfect spring soup. That was just this light, fruity, flavorful soup with a little bit of mint and basil in it. And it was fun exploring flavoring water in a unique way that evoked memories of my childhood, but tasted a lot better.
That's so cool. I love that.
Have you done any stocks or waters or anything, Mike?
No, not yet. I have some beef bones sitting in my freezer that are just waiting to get back from vacation, and it's on my list, but I haven't.
Lisa, did you pick up any tips from the showcase that you're looking forward to giving a try the next time you're working on one of your world-class contest-winning recipes?
Well, I really loved everyone's presentation, and so I'm so new to sous vide that it's all good for me. I did love the pumpkin spice syrup. I think that would be really delicious as a glaze over a cake or something like that. Again, I thought the honey was fantastic. The pear and ginger and the shrub, the rhubarb, that Mark did. I saw lots of great applications to baking. I think your panna cotta, fantastic.
Thank you.
And Chelsea's oil. I think that oil could have a lot of, baking isn't always about something sweet. For me, it's also about lots of delicious savory things. So I think there's a lot of great applications to all the presentations everyone did. I have a lot to learn, and I'm trying to be like a sponge and absorb it all.
We all are.
Exactly. I thought the tea bag idea, I have never thought of.
Yeah.
Tea is an infusion. I've never thought of using that in another, flavored infusion. I thought that was brilliant.
I was talking to Annalise from the Institute of Culinary Professionals. I got the name of the organization wrong. What is it, Mike?
International Association of Culinary Professionals.
That's the one.
I'm a member of it. I should know.
I had Annalise on, and she wrote a whole cookbook about tea, and she talks about cooking with teas and using, especially like a Lafroig, the really smoky teas. She'll use that for like smoked meats. She'll braise it ahead of time or cook it as part of the braising liquid to really impart a lot of those flavors. And it's something that I haven't explored too much with infusions, but I feel like you could go in a lot of different directions, and there's so many amazing flavorful like teas and tea blends out there that save you a lot of time mixing your own.
I bought a book called Culinary Teas like 5 years ago. Do you guys do this where you buy books and then you just forget to go back to them? And I saw it on the shelf the other day, and I'm like, I was so excited to buy this book and I haven't even used it.
Where you get your inspirations from sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a dream someday of like doing like a cookbook club where other people will like the accountability will force me to cook my way through a cookbook, which I know those exist, but we'll see if that ever happens.
I'm with you. Let's do that. Let's do an ISVA. We can start with your book and then go through Jason's, library
Perfect.
of 500.
Yeah. Perfect. I love it.
Chelsea, what's your go-to use for sous-vide vinegars?
Honestly, I haven't done a lot of sous-vide vinegars. And that was like such a great thing for me to just like realize I should be doing. I love shrubs, drink them regularly. And I'm like, oh, I could totally just be doing this myself. And I also buy a lot of fun, flavorful vinegars. So it's like, why am I buying this when, again, I could just do it myself? So I think that would be really fun. I'd love to experiment with some really bright flavors like a pomegranate, making a pomegranate shrub or something like that, and some more herbal things. One of my favorite shrubs is a blueberry mint. So the idea of trying that myself is very fun. So I think that'll have to happen.
Nice. Yeah, I love a good shrub too, and vinegars are so easy to put together. I don't know. I've really enjoyed building out different ones. I love a good balsamic with black cherries in it. It's just so good with a little bit of club soda, and I could drink that all day. Let's see what getting near the end of the questions that I had. Do any of you have questions for each other? This is a friendly panel, so I'm free to open it up.
I think all my questions for Lisa got answered 2 days ago. That was a fantastic episode of Exploring Sous-Vide, by the way. Thank you for coming on. I really enjoyed it.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Again, new experience for me making a video and presenting to people.
You did a great job.
Bashful side, I'm afraid. I have to get a little more energy, maybe. I don't know.
I've been working on that for 8 years, so it's a slow process, but you can get there if you keep working at it.
I wanted to go back to your vinegar question before. I had a vinegar one time made with infused with fig leaves. I don't know if you guys are doing anything like that with, go outside in your yard and forage a little bit and infuse some things. The fig leaves, it was delicious. And that's something that would have never occurred to me to to just grab some fig leaves off my tree and try and infuse it into a vinegar.
I did a pine infusion with some of the fresh growth pine from when we lived in Connecticut. We had a bigger like field out behind us, and so I went out there and trimmed off some of the new fresh pine and made I forget, I think it was maybe an oil, but I'm not positive if it was oil or vinegar, but made an infusion from that, and that turned out really well.
How did you use it?
I honestly forget. This was like probably 6 or 7 years ago. But I probably used it just on fish or on a salad dressing. That's why I'm always curious how people use their oils and vinegars, because people are like, how do you use it? I'm like, I don't know. I put it on salad and then I just trail off,
Well, I think that's baby steps. You start with the salad and then you might get a little more adventurous after that.
One of my favorite infused oils I've ever had was I want to say it was at Serpico in Philadelphia, and I did a version of it in one of my cookbooks, but they did a mustard oil. So it was really, really strongly flavored of mustard, using like whole mustard seeds. And so it had that nice spice to it and the really good flavor. And then they made a dashi and had fish in it with some like thinly sliced like radishes and cucumbers, and then the oil was almost the highlight of the dish, that it was drizzled over the top, and so you had nice pools of really flavorful mustard oil and a nice dashi and the fish in it. It was one of the most inventive dishes I've had.
I love seeing what all these fantastically talented chefs put together. It blows my mind. The first Sous-Vide Summit was like that for me. It was just like we're walking through and seeing all the stuff Correa's doing, and I'm just like, I'm mind blown,
Yeah, well, Correa's like, here's
what it was until I walked into that summit.
Yeah, Correa's like, oh, here is our tomato sushi that tastes just like tuna, even though it's sous-vide tomato pieces. You're like, what are you people doing in your mad scientist lab? It's amazing.
That was wild. And the pork belly eel, yeah. We could talk about that food for hours.
Oh. Mike Bailey throwing some compliments our way. Thank you, Mike. Says, great listening to you all tossing it around. The demos were great. Had a sous vide for years, but haven't explored as much. ISVA will be a go-to for me from now on. Well, we're happy that we can help Mike and help move your culinary pursuits going forward. I want to end this panel discussion by asking each one of you. We can start with Mike down in my lower right corner. What is one infusion that you think everyone needs to try, whether it's one of yours or one that you've seen someone else do that you think everyone should try it that's listening?
You're only asking me this question because it's going to be one of yours that I'm going to put here. Jason's apple pie bourbon and apple pie bourbon liqueur, absolutely. The uses for it are all over the place, and I've been wanting to make a panna cotta with it. I just haven't done it yet, but that is my go-to every Thanksgiving. It's amazing. So you're welcome.
I probably should have gone first, so Mike wouldn't steal what I was going to say. But all right, Chelsea, we will go next to you.
Yeah. So I'm going to reverse engineer it just a little bit. But one of my favorite liquors to infuse is gin. And it does really well with either fruity or herbal flavors or both. I love to use basil, in fact. And I think I love gin in general. I know it's very polarizing liquor, but it takes really well to infusions because it's already got kind of an herbal flavor. And I think that's a really great one to go to.
I'll have to give that a shot. I'm not a gin fan, but my wife loves it. So it's one of our polarizing things in our household. But I try to move forward. She goes to bourbon tastings occasionally and puts up with those. So I make sure I get her enough gin to keep her happy as well.
Got to reciprocate.
Yep. That's any good marriage. It's making sure that you keep the other one drinking the alcohol that they like. How about you, Lisa?
Well, one of the infusions I just did was kind of a spin-off of the glaze on the pear tart. I added a whole habanero pepper to the jar with the pear peelings and the guts of the pear and hibiscus and the ginger. And it was more of a simple syrup. I had lemon water in there, no sugar. And then some vodka was in there too. And I was pleasantly surprised by the heat that I got in the infusion. So an intact habanero pepper, you only need one. And it's been a really good syrup to pour over a pear pizza that I recently baked. So yeah, add a little heat to your infusions. It's tasty.
That was honestly my first thought with Mark Webb's honey, that I thought, throwing a habanero pepper in there, making some hot honey to drizzle over some good pizza sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's good.
So now the pressure is on me since Mike stole my go-to infusion.
You knew what I was going to say.
I should have, yeah. One of the favorite ones that I've done lately is I never really cooked that much with rhubarb, and they had it at the farmer's market. I was like, that looks amazing. Maybe I'll just buy this and figure out what I want to do with it. And I made a infused simple syrup with rosemary and rhubarb. And the combination was great. And it was good in anything from rum daiquiris to martinis to just with club soda for a non-alcoholic soda. So I really like that flavor combination. And it's something that I want to explore a little bit more, especially since it's kind of a limited time of the year offering that you can use.
Sounds delicious.
Well, everyone, thank you for both providing a demo for the showcase. I really appreciate you all being involved and for coming on here and letting me learn from your expertise for the last half hour. I really appreciate everything you all give to the ISVA and give to all of our fans out there. It means a lot to everyone listening and to me and Mike as well. And even Mike showing up on front of the camera is enjoyable. So thank you all for joining us.
You guys are the best.
It's so much fun hanging out with y'all. So
Thank you.
And thanks for everyone that joined us listening. All the attendees, I think we had almost 80 people sign up as attendees, and a lot of people were in there live, in and out. So it was great. All the communications. And as we said, we will be having more of these showcases. So make sure to stay tuned and check them out, and check out here every Thursday, because we do the Exploring Sous-Vide shows with a lot of great people coming up, including Chef Michael Kelly, Chef David Petranzik, and Scott Heimendinger, as well as some people coming up the month after that. Looking forward to it. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Doris. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kevin, for always being there for us, my little huggy bear. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you all later.
See you guys.